The one I wrote a few months ago. It's not in any of my books yet, but I really don't perform it that much yet. But it's called Turbulence, Turmoil, Tragedy, and Triumph on the Tightrope. I'm sitting in a rusty red rocking chair in my beautiful, bare and broken down bedroom, and I'm looking out of my fractured foggy window. I see a squirrel walking on a telephone wire like it's a tightrope. I've never once seen those little rodents lose their balance and fall. Let me paint the picture for you here. It's one of those colorblind, dying December days. Snow is falling all around like catastrophic bombs over Baghdad. It's so beautiful outside, but I'm trapped behind dozens of posters of my favorite bands and ripped wallpaper and a colorblind TV. I will never be able to leave my footprints in the freshly fallen snow. My mother comes in and tells me it's one of those magnificent mornings to just stay inside and cuddle up with some hot cocoa and a book. But all we have here is icicles and yellow snow. We don't own any epic novels. We can't even afford the newspaper. I lived in a trailer park my whole life, and now I feel like I'm caged and crammed in a claustrophobic cubicle more than ever. I feel like a mouse in a maze, except there's no cheese at the finish line. I feel like the last pawn left on a chessboard full of kings and queens, and there's never a checkmate or standstill. I feel like a turtle on its shell. I feel like an elephant in a zoo. I feel like a fly flying too close to the light. I feel like Holden Caulfield. I feel like a caged bird whose song for salvation no one ever hears. I feel like a marionette with no strings. I feel like a paper cut. I feel like a squirrel who's lost all its acorns. I feel like a pauper. I feel like a murderer. I feel like a failure. I feel like a cripple. I feel like a statue. I feel like a scapegoat. I feel like a boy. Here I am now hoping, just hoping that I don't fall off the tightrope in my head. The similar type of shit has left a lot of my fellow friends and brothers as good as dead. My mother comes in once again and tells me it's one of those perfect days to just stay inside and put together puzzles or watch game shows or bust out old photo albums. But I look up to her and plead, Mom, there's still missing pieces of the puzzle of our past. There's still question marks at the end of all of our sentences. Our own relationship is a freaking game show. All the pictures in our photo albums have an X drawn over some man's face with a beard. I always assumed they were merely unfinished games of tic-tac-toe, but now I'm not so sure. I haven't seen any O's, and I haven't seen any man with a beard at my house, except for the mailman who delivered a letter saying, congratulations, your son got accepted into Yale, but he's too damn poor to even afford a single semester of his tuition. Who delivered the package with a key in it to escape out of this world, but who certainly did not deliver me like a stork onto this planet. I know for sure he's not the man in those pictures. He does not have a big black X drawn over his face. But he tells my mother he loves her, and she puts a stamp on the upper right-hand corner of his heart, hoping it gets to its destination safely. I finally built up the courage to ask her who the X-faced stranger is or was, and right at that moment, she hands me a cup of hot cocoa and a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and she simply shoves me beneath layers of blood-stained blankets. I accidentally drip the scorching fluid on my open scars, but I become even numb to that now. A toxic tear spills from my eye into the cup. I take a sip of the pseudo-poison and smile, for I've heard of several stories of surrender, but I've heard even more stories of salvation. But redemption is never resurrected for rope walkers, and rescue and recovery is never offered in broken homes. So I decide to try and put the scattered pieces back together myself, but as I pick my fractured past up and off the floor, my mother slaps me across the face and screams, it's one of those utopian evenings to draw kindergarten caricatures and put them on the refrigerator. But we don't even know magnets or crayons or paper. So I put up the courage to tell her that this house has never felt like a home, and this room has always merely just been my decrepit cage. And I tell her that perhaps I would be better off in a circus, dangling off of high wires like a monkey for everyone's enjoyment. But she shifts me to the door and kicks my ass on the way out, and throws a shovel on my chest, but tells me not to go beyond the driveway. As she shuts the door and closes the blind, I get a little curious. I see light beyond my mailbox and other people shoveling their driveways. I see squirrels and other trees. So I decide to take the road less traveled by and see for myself what's beyond the horizon. Now I'm walking on thin ice and an even thinner road. I feel the earth starting to shake below my feet. And right before I fell off the edge, a bearded man with a red hunting hat caught me. I wish I could have thanked him, or at least seen his face. But all I remember was an X, and then somehow I was home again, drinking hot cocoa, and making puzzles with my mother, and erasing unfinished tic-tac-toe games off the pictures, all merely inside my mind. I'm sitting again in a rusty red rocking chair in my bedroom, and I'm still looking out that window. I see a squirrel walking on a tree branch like it's a tightrope, and as that squirrel somehow loses its balance and plummets from that tree, I wonder what it's like to feel that free.